Hello and a very warm welcome to the World Vision United webinar for today, Thursday, the 25th of February, 2021. How did that happen? February. I'm Martin Campbell, the Programme Director for World Vision United, and joining me on the webinar today is Helmut Lindl, who's our Product Owner for the digital programme. First of all, well done for noting the new time of the webinar. If you're joining us live, we've moved it up to 9 o'clock London time, really in order to make things easier for our colleagues in the Eastern time zones from the UK, particularly in Southeast Asia, where we have quite a few deployments now planned for World Vision United starting very soon. So hopefully that makes life easier for you folks. Welcome. Huge apologies to our friends to the West and in Western time zones. We understand that this means you'll be watching this on demand, hopefully, rather than getting up at crazy times in the morning. But for future webinars, what I would suggest is if you do have something you'd like to throw into the webinar or a question or anything, do just send it over to us in advance and we can cover it in the webinar and make sure that you get the information that you need. Now, in today's update, there is quite a bit to cover. So we're actually going to focus this session on looking at how World Vision United is working together with other initiatives around the partnership as part of our promise going further, in order to deliver the sort of joined up solution that we all need in support offices around the world. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the CRM programs, both the European CRM program and the global program that's underway. Then we'll move on to look at analytics, another joint program, and we'll particularly focus on how United implements the global partnership standard for analytics with the latest global data layer 2.0 data layer. Then we'll take a look at how these programs are actually delivered, the sort of mechanics behind the scenes, and the methodology that we use is agile. But I wanted to go into detail about how that works, really to make sure that you can understand how best to engage with the program to get the results that you need. And then finally, for the webinar, we're going to bring all of that together and take a look at the work we're doing with Leapfrog in detail to bring that sponsorship portal to life within the latest version of the World Vision United platform. And as usual, we'll be sort of hopping backwards and forwards between Helmut and myself to take you through all of that. At the end, as always, we're hoping to leave some time for questions. So if you're not already logged into YouTube with your Google account, do take a moment to do that so that you can post your questions into the chat and give us something to bounce off of and respond to. Hopefully we'll be able to answer all of your questions. So I want to get started first of all by talking about CRM integration. And I'm going to start in Europe, where World Vision United is already widely used and where there's already a focus around just two main CRM platforms that are used across Europe. The Future CRM program, the European Future CRM program, is a program to replace both of those current CRMs in use, that's iVision and Simmer, with a new CRM based on the Microsoft Dynamics platform. And what that means is that both CRM and the World Vision United platform will need to work together as the essential MarTech platforms for fundraising activities right across Europe. The CRM program is going to bring the data analysis tools, the dashboard capabilities, and the campaign management tools that we currently use. It's going to bring those right up to date and bring new marketing automation capabilities to bear to be able to grow our supporter base and improve acquisitions. And of course, at the same time, the World Vision United program is going to bring the state-of-the-art digital toolkit with the shared content and optimization built in, supporting that best-in-class digital supporter experience that we've been talking about in previous webinars. So that means that in order to deliver on that promise of either of those programs, the CRM and United teams are working together hand in hand to achieve the best possible results overall. We all believe that together we can achieve that rich and exciting supporter experience that works seamlessly for our supporters across their different devices and the different channels where they engage with us, and ultimately bring them closer to our cause and to those we serve. What it does mean is that practically there are a couple of takeaway points from the work that we've done so far and sort of principles that are governing our work moving forward. And it's really important that we're all clear on these. The first is that it's really important that we understand where each kind of work should be done. We want to avoid trying to create two different versions of the same thing in different platforms that are kind of fighting with each other, and say, actually, there's one place that this work should best be done. Let's put it in the appropriate platform and make sure it's there. So that's the primary reason for making sure that we're working closely together. But the other reason, and this is just as important from a supporter experience perspective, is that it's really important that information flows as quickly and seamlessly between the platforms as possible, so that whatever job you're doing, whichever platform you're using, you've got all the information that you need to do it. Now, in reality, that is quite challenging because there are some areas of functionality where it's not quite clear, well, which platform should this live on? And seamless data transfer is easy to say, but actually pretty complex to deliver. But Helmut and myself and the rest of the United team are working closely with Ronnie, Otto, and Jan and Constanza from the CRM team and the rest of the CRM team. And we're determined to bring these programs together as quickly and seamlessly as we can to give you the best marketing tools for the job. And of course, if that's true for Europe, it's equally true for the global CRM program, which is being run by Global IT. Both of those CRMs are being built on Microsoft Dynamics. And of course, World Vision United already holds its data in the Microsoft Common Data Model, which underpins the latest versions of Dynamics. And so we're envisaging that the data transfer element will be similar between United and those two different CRM platforms. But it's equally important that we continue to work with the Global IT team who will be delivering that program. And so we'll be taking the same approach with the same principles. Now, neither of those platforms is yet live, so it's really important that you're also able to see a reliable way to get data in and out of your current CRM, which is something we've spoken about in the last webinar. So do go and check that out if you want a little bit more data about how that's going to work. But we already have those integrations on the roadmap, and in some cases we can already deliver that data. And we'll be looking at that roadmap again later in this webinar. So if we're successful at all of that, we'll be able to bring together some really great tools, and we'll be able to make sure that we can deliver outstanding performance, which we can measure right the way through the process. And on the topic of measurement, another part of the United program that we've had a lot of questions about recently is the analytics element. So I'm going to hand over to Helmut to take a look through the work that we're doing to deliver analytics within United. Helmut, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Martin, for this insight on CRM system. One of the major topics that is very important to us and that stands at the forefront of most of our work is analytics, because one of the major promises that we make with United 4 is that we center our platform around value for the supporters, and somehow we need to measure that, right? We need, whatever we do needs to deliver additional value to supporters, so they can interact with us, make donations, access content based on existing recurring donations, or tell their friends about us. When we started to set up analytics, we had 3 aspects in mind that relate to our organization as a whole, and 2 more aspects that relate just to our platform, right? So the ones that relate to the organization as a whole, you can see in orange here, and the ones that relate to our platform, you can see in green. So regarding the organization as a whole, we want to make sure that whatever analytics data you get out of World Vision United 4 matches the way the rest of the organization handles analytics data as well. This is why we work closely with the digital optimization team under Jim Goddard to make sure that we are aligned with their approach as well. So Jay has done some amazing work putting together the next version of the global data layer, which we call now Data Layer 2.0, which will be scaled to offices regardless of which platform they're on. So the cool thing is that you get the latest version of the data layer, which will already be included in World Vision United 4 whenever you join. So you'll get that out of the box. This also means that Jay's team can automate the way reporting works for digital performance, and you don't get chased up by him for manual updates every quarter. So that will be a major advantage to you as an office. Second, we want to make sure that you get an easily accessible, up-to-date overview of your website's performance with World Vision United 4. This is why we haven't only worked on getting lots of data into analytics, but also of getting important data out of analytics for you to consume in an easy way. With United 4, you'll get an easy way to consume dashboards with the most important KPIs in real time. Now, this work has only started, and StatNav, which we've talked about in previous webinars as well, will provide a great deal of value here. But even for now, you can view the website's financial performance in an easy way right out of the box. Third, our standardized approach means that you will be able to easily benchmark your performance with other offices. This will be true across the partnership when the global data layer is rolled out by Jay's team, but it also comes out of the box for United 4 offices. So you're struggling in social traffic, maybe ask Spain because they're doing it better. You made some changes to the topics you mentioned in SEA. Great, you can see if your office pulls ahead of others, and maybe you can share this topic if you're doing well in the next learning session. Our setup will allow you to have a roll-up view of performance that shows important metrics, not only for your office, but across all offices that are part of the platform. So those are the three goals we want to achieve with analytics regarding the wider organization. But for our own platform, we have two more specific goals. First, we want to make sure that whatever optimizations we come up with are based on data. In World Vision, we're often talking about building something. Let's say I want to build a login feature. But actually, the exciting part only happens after we have built it and launched it. That's when supporters start interacting with it, and we can get valuable insights about ways they like to work with it and where they maybe struggle to interact with it. In this phase of optimization, there's two ways to find out what to work on next. First, we might think we have an idea that's better than the baseline. If our analytics is set up right, we can check the data and see if there's a problem to solve. So for login, if 99% of supporters log in successfully, maybe we don't need to rework our login flow just yet. So maybe we don't even have a problem. The second option is to let data actually lead us to an opportunity for our optimization. We might think our login with the password works well, but if we only have 60% of successful logins compared to 80% with a magic link, we might want to think about making the magic link default, or the other way around, depending on our data. So this is why it's important to validate new ideas for optimizations with data before we approach them. And by the way, that's a good argument for launching smaller versions of a feature sooner as well. Secondly, we want to make sure that each feature that we build comes with built-in analytics. This is why all our features on Product Board include a hypothesis that is actually measurable by analytics. This is how we check if we need additional triggers or tags or data layer values in order to validate the performance of the feature. So we will build all of those into the platform as we go. Of course, this is important and time-consuming daily business that we do. This is why our team now includes a full-time position for analytics since January this year. Ricardo, who joined our team, is an experienced expert in analytics, and he accompanies each of our features in the development process end to end. So that's a really big step forward for us as a team, and I'm really excited about that. So based on those 5 goals, we built infrastructure around analytics. First, the latest version of the global data layer, currently we're in version 2.0.2, runs on every World Vision United 4 website. This means enhanced e-commerce data is captured in a way that's in line with WBI standards. Second, each site comes with Hotjar and Optimize integration. This means you can start creating heat maps and tests out of the box. What's more, from a global perspective, we're going to take a look at your site and validate new features for you as well. All of this data will be available to you, so you have full transparency on how your website performs here. Third, we have implemented a centralized infrastructure for GTM tagging. This means if a new feature requires new tags, we can implement them across the platform, and you will receive the ability to track the performance of this new feature out of the box again. So this will be actively managed by our team. But still, you may require local tags, such as your local Facebook pixel, for example. So each of those sites that you will get will have a local GTM zone, which is basically just another GTM container where you can add your local tags as well. So some of you might know the setup from United 3, but the difference is that the global container will really be actively managed now. This means you still have full flexibility to add to global tagging if your office has the capacity and the capabilities to do that, but you don't need to do it because all the essential tracking will be in the global GTM container anyway. And lastly, each of the countries receives their own analytics property within a global account. This will be configured with best practice views such as reporting, test, stage, and raw data. And again, all of this comes out of the box to you, so you can start looking at data presented in a best practice way from day one when you join the platform. There's one more thing that Jay and his team are doing great work on. So for GTM, Google Analytics, and soon also for Optimize, all of your containers will have a Google 360 or now Google Marketing Platform license, which is shared across the partnership. So this means you have access to enterprise level features that are only affordable to us because the big offices are taking part in this initiative as well. So World Vision US, Canada, and so on are taking part in this as well. So again, thanks Jay for your work in making that possible as well. One more thing is a dashboard, which I talked a little bit before as well. So this is work we're currently doing and which we will surely iterate a lot. So the idea is that on this great databases, we can surface the most important KPIs to each of you through Google Stadio dashboard, Google Data Stadio dashboards. So each of your offices will have their own performance on the dashboard, but we will also have a roll-up view that enables us to compare performance across offices. Now, I'm personally very happy that we have this setup as a start because it will give most of your offices a boost in terms of data quality and accessibility, and it's well integrated in what the partnership is doing. So you can see here a start to the financial dashboard, which is just something that we started playing around with last week and this week, where you can actually see, let's say on a month-to-month basis, you can see your major revenue, transactions, the average order value, which will be the average value per transaction, always for your regular donations and your sponsorship donations. And you can also see some relative measures like revenue per user. So is the traffic that you get on the website actually converting, and the e-commerce conversion rate as well. So as I mentioned, this is just work in process. We'll make it pretty as well. But this is just a sneak preview into how we're imagining this. In addition to the financial dashboard, we'll also have more dashboards, like for example, an operational one that dives deeper, where your operational staff can see how are the major operational KPIs performing as well. So you can see here, we just to get some data, we hooked this up to Spain, where you can see that they recently ran a campaign that resulted in a big traffic spike. So that's something that you will be able to see then maybe in a rolling view. So you can have access to this data in real time. You can see different channels. You can also see transactions and e-commerce data and so on. So that's something we're still exploring, what will be the most important KPIs for you guys to see, and how can we make sure that the most important ones are here in a prominent way as well, and how can we make that look pretty as well. So those are just a sneak preview into two of the dashboards that we are currently working on. But of course, this is only a start, and we're aware that there's a lot of rooms for improvement and for making this thing really workable for each of your offices. So what are some of the next things we will tackle? First, on top of measuring acquisition metrics, we want to find a way to automatically track subscription metrics, such as monthly recurring revenue or churn as well. Now, this is a lot harder because you need to know when a recurring donation is canceled. However, together with our work on Leapfrog and My World Vision, as well as the CRM integration, which we both talked about today as well, we're thinking about the analytics implications of this as well. So mastering the retention bit of performance tracking is one of the most exciting next challenges for us. Second, as offices are in the last steps of going live, we're eager to test our process around data-driven decision-making in real life as well. I'm sure we will face challenges around the volume of data, about statistical significance, and so on, and getting real value out of our data to guide and validate our prioritization will be an exciting task as well. And lastly, our current work focuses on-page data. However, this only tracks the output side of things. Everyone can increase conversions by putting $1 million into display ads, but that only shows one half of the performance. So this is why we're already working with Nikolai's team around DMA. We have some acquisition pilots in a couple of countries already. So we're looking to include data about acquisition channels and both paid and organic media into the mix, and ideally also bringing costs into the picture as well. So again, we're working closely also with GMC and Jay's team to make sure that whatever analytics data we receive here is comparable to the rest of the partnership. So there's still exciting times ahead in analytics, but I think based on the solid and strong foundation we have built, we can advance quickly and we can help you guys make marketing decisions with confidence and backed up by data in an iterative way as well. And I think the way we can do this is by adhering to those agile principles of delivering fast and iterating frequently, which Martin will talk a little bit in more detail now as well.
Thank you, Helmut. Really, really exciting to see those dashboards coming to life with the global data layer to allow us to compare our performance globally. It's going to be absolutely fantastic when that's all filled with real world data. We, of course, will be sharing the results from those analytics platforms in this webinar as soon as we are able to do so from live United 4 sites. So very much looking forward to sharing that information with you when we get to that point. Now, as Helmut mentioned, what I wanted to do in this session is to go into a little bit of a closer look at how a feature like analytics that you've just seen, or for that matter, childhood rescue or logins or any of the other things that we've mentioned in this or previous webinars, how those features make their way from being an idea, first of all, to being released on the platform. And we touched on this in earlier webinars, but I wanted to just delve in a little bit more detail now, mainly because there are a few aspects of this which are unfamiliar and they can be quite off-putting. And also to make sure that we all understand when and how we can put in a sort of prioritization view and how we can put in our own ideas and participate in this process. The main reason, though, for picking this up now is that there is a significant shift between the way that we've previously worked on World Vision United up to version 3 and the way that we're now working in World Vision United 4. So previously, we've had very much a sense of working as an agency within the partnership, where offices would ask for the thing that they want, and then it would be built, and there would be an assessment of work that drives the date to be delivered. And all of the assessment of whether that's valuable would be done within the individual offices. Now, what that means is we get a diverse range of ideas from across the partnership, which was fantastic, and we see those coming through. But one of the drawbacks with that is that it's sometimes difficult for us, firstly, to prioritize which of those ideas are going to generate most value globally, because what's most important in one country may not be what's most important in another. But also that if we don't actually assess the value in as they are brought together, it's actually quite difficult to decide which one should be built first and how we can share that. So we've shifted that now, and instead of being able to just simply say, right, I'd like a feature, let's have this feature, I want it delivered on a certain date, you've seen in previous webinars that we have a much more open product consultation process where ideas can come in at any point from anyone in the partnership, and they are then all assessed for value at an early stage to understand how much value is this going to bring to the global platform. And those ideas that are high priority, we're then going to take through to test them, and those ideas which work, we will then put in as part of the platform. And there's another important thing here which has changed, which is it's not enough for a feature not to harm performance. We've certainly got some features on the website that is under my aegis in the UK, where we've put them in. We can't really measure whether they're having an impact, but we think they're a good idea. So we've left them there. Now, we're moving away from that approach because actually, whilst that seems relatively harmless, what it means over a period of time is that we do take on quite a lot of cost to build features which don't deliver a measurable improvement if we're not careful. But critically, we end up with a far more sophisticated, far more complex site than we would otherwise end up with. And that means that the cost of any future work on anything which touches that platform becomes more complex and therefore more expensive. So the cost of those little sort of, this doesn't seem to do any harm and it looks like a great idea, we'll leave it in. The cost of those really does ramp up over a period of time. And of course, we know that simplicity is a really important part of a good user experience. So we kind of move away from that if we're not really on our guard the whole time. So the principle that we're adopting here is to really minimize the amount of work that we do. We're really focusing on what are all the things that we cannot do and really focus our activities on the value. And because this is a global platform, we're looking for global value or regional value. And we will build all those features which are going to deliver that kind of value and steer away from the others. Now, that's fine in theory, and there's a couple of principles there, but what does it mean in practice? So let's take a look at this, because we've touched on these things in previous webinars, but I want to give you a chance to go a little bit deeper. If we look at the high-level plan of the roadmap, what you can see here, and this is the new version that we've just brought out this month, this actually goes a little bit more detailed than the ones that we previously produced, although it does align to the same dates. But this product roadmap really shows you which features am I going to get and when are they going to be there. And you can see them mapped quarter by quarter, and they turn obviously green as they are delivered. And you can see some things there that you might be expecting. So when do I get childhood rescue? When do I get sort of different parts of the platform coming live? And, this is really important to us, this roadmap, because we're trying to deliver this to a schedule. World Vision United 4 is a re-platforming activity, which means we don't have a previous set of features to rely on while we're waiting to build the new versions. Until we can produce the new version of a feature, it doesn't exist in United 4. And that means that we need to build the first version of all of those features as quickly as we can in order that offices can move from United 3 to United 4 or from other platforms to United 4 without losing capabilities that they already have, to start to benefit from the massive advances that we've made with United 4 already. So we don't want people to be held up from moving to the fastest platform in the sector with the really, really high mobile compatibility because there's a specific feature that they need that's holding them back. Now, how do we do that? That's really at the heart of this, and that's really how we understand the best way to engage in the platform as we move forward. If you've been involved in delivering these sorts of digital services yourself, you'll be aware that when you're working in an area like this, there's a lot of things that are unknown, a lot of things that you're going to encounter over the course of the program. How are we going to get this particular piece of data in? How is that particular control going to work if Google changed their mind about what's a good idea? So there's a lot of unknowns. But there are three things that you can typically control. And forgive me if you've seen this before. I'm sure many of us will be familiar with this. But generally, you can control, right, what level of quality are we going to bake into the program? Which functions do we need to go out the door with? And how quickly are we going to get there? What's the deadline that we're going to reach? Now, it would be lovely to think that we could find ways to have a happy, virtuous circle and take an action that would deliver all three. But in many cases, we actually have to make a compromise, and we have to say, well, if I want to add this feature, it's going to take a little bit longer to deliver. So I have to decide between functionality and speed. And in previous versions of the platform, and this is entirely appropriate, that's the way it was set up, and in other programs, this remains appropriate. We say actually functionality is our main driver and quality is kind of a non-negotiable. We have to have a high quality supporter experience. So that being the case, it's going to be speed that's at the bottom of that priority pile. So we'll deliver as fast as we can, but it's going to have these features in. And if that feature is not ready, we're not going to launch it. And therefore we might say we'll take a delay to the program rather than launch without a certain feature. But we've taken a different approach in United 4. And the reason for that is that actually, if we keep quality as a non-negotiable, which we have to, but we make speed to market more important than functionality, we get some real benefits right across the board. Now, doing work in this way is really adopting a principle called lean in business circles, which is at the heart of almost every successful online marketing and product design activity that's going on at the moment. Speed is king because supporters change behavior so quickly and so unexpectedly that if we take a long time, sort of months, to build something that supporters say they want, then we will be outperformed by organizations which actually just get a basic product out into market first and measure how supporters use it. Not only will they get their feedback faster, but they'll get better feedback because real world performance data is so much more valuable than the data that we can get from focus groups or individual consultations. And the other benefit of going faster, of course, is that as you're learning, you're engaging with your new supporters who have come on board during that early basic period, and you're delivering improved performance to them along the way. So if we take a look at these two practices together, you can start to see why this is so important. If we take a look at a more conventional approach, we can say, okay, we start by building something, building feature one, and then a little bit later we will move on and build feature 2, and then we'll build feature 3, and we'll build feature 4, and then at the end we'll launch everything. Very straightforward way to work. Has some real benefits in terms of, and that works just fine. But the lean approach says, well, actually, we're going to build feature 1, but then even as we're building feature 2, we're going to launch feature 1. We're going to have that live in market. We need to start to gather data from it. That means that by the time we're building feature 3, we've got real data, and we can decide whether and how we should build feature 3 based on real data from real users. And you can gather such rich data from this kind of testing by putting out propositions in a very lightweight method and saying, well, I've got 3 ways I could do this. I'm just going to put them all in there, see which one works. And then I'll only have to build the one that works best. And it can be tremendously helpful because if I sort of show you the way that value gets delivered here, with the feature focused approach, with the sort of traditional waterfall approach, you tend to deliver no value to the organization or to the users until you launch. And then obviously you do start to deliver value. But with the lean approach, you start to deliver value immediately because there is a basic function that can go out the door really early on. And there's an inflection point. Once you start to incorporate data into your decision making about the product, you can then obviously build a better product. So at every stage, this seriously outperforms the more traditional feature focused approach, which is very much the reason why we are adopting that for United 4 and transitioning our sort of interactions with the partnership over to that. It's not the way we normally work, getting things out early and doing things that we might think, oh, I'm not comfortable with that as an experience. I really want it to have these other things. But we know from work that other organizations have done that are growing very rapidly, and from the personal experiences of the marketing experts that we have in the team, that this approach really does deliver very, very quickly. Now, what does this all mean in practice? I'm going to just hop back to that earlier slide there and just show you the product roadmap again, because whilst we've locked this product roadmap in place for actually the last year, this hasn't changed since we launched the United 4 program back in February 2020, which of course seems like a different era now. We are now getting into the meat of some of the really interesting parts of the program to say, right, we're starting to build beyond the minimum viable product. We're starting to get into iterations and get into performance. So how do we make those decisions about what's within these different parts of the program? Well, there are a number of ways. So I've already mentioned the product board approach, where you can at any point push into product board, have a look at what's already there, add your vote or your comments to an existing item that might be on that high level list, which we'd call an epic. Those blocks on the list are all epics. Or you might suggest a new one and say, hey, this is a really high priority. And we'll then work with the other customers of United and the other folks coming on board to determine that overall priority. But there's another way that we really love you to get involved, to encourage your colleagues, both in your office and other offices, to get involved. And that's when it comes to breaking those epics down, because a really important part of this program is to understand, well, what does it mean to be able to do a certain thing? What does a login feature actually look like? What does a preference center look like? What features are actually going to be involved in Leapfrog, and when are they going to be delivered? Now, to get involved in those, I'd very much encourage you to pick up on the invitations to the town hall sessions, because as we start work on an epic, or we begin to plan the work on an epic, what we'll do is schedule the town hall session for that epic and actually break it down for the group that attends and go through from, different offices perspective and from the different initiatives perspective, what's being sought here, how could we achieve that, which features are just necessary to deliver this, which are, so obvious that we have to build them, and which are the ones where we are looking at them thinking, these look like a good idea, but we'll put it out in market and then we'll add them and test them as we go. And so that is your venue for having that conversation. And I really encourage you, if you're particularly engaged in one part of the program, perhaps if you're engaged in supporter experience and you're really concerned about retention, do get involved in the Leapfrog conversations that were happening over the next few months to really get engaged around how Leapfrog will come to life in United 4, for example. And of course, there are other programs coming through there as well. So you'll see the invitations from us for those town halls, and you'll see that sort of agenda coming out and be able to contribute where you think that is appropriate. And I mentioned a couple of terms in there, which I'll just clarify, but then we'll move on because I don't want to get too hung up on this point. But I mentioned minimum viable products. And what that means is, what's the very, very smallest set of features that I could launch and allow the supporter to do the thing that they want to do? So, for example, the minimum viable product for the ability to sign up for a child sponsorship has been live in the United platform for several months now. It's possible to sign up, select a child, and go through the sponsorship process on the platform. We're still working on the things that we want to deliver as part of that initial experience to make sure that that's a great experience. So there's a little bit of a gap there between the minimum viable product and what you might actually want to launch with. And what we're calling that is performance equivalence. So when we look at a platform like United 3 and United 4, we might very easily say, well, I want feature equivalence. I want all the features of the old platform to be on the new platform. But of course, the objective of the new platform is to perform far superior to the existing platform, and we've already achieved that on some key metrics. So the idea that it should also do all the things that the current platform does isn't necessarily going to contribute to that outperformance. In fact, doing the same thing and expecting a different result is probably not going to give us the result that we're looking for. So instead, we look for performance equivalence. We look for being able to say, actually, this is going to perform at least as well as what we've got. And there's a whole load of new performance improvements coming down the line that we're really convinced are going to deliver the improvements. So as we launch the First United platforms over the coming months, you'll be able to see that performance equivalent in action, and we'll be able to present and share the data supporting that. And of course, what we hope is that the real leaps that we've made in terms of search engine optimization through the speed and structure of the site will actually give us quite a boost to performance, even as we continue to build those remaining features. And then once we've achieved that performance equivalence, we're able to say, okay, we now know that this is going to perform at least as well as what we've got. We can move there with confidence and then really start to get the performance gains. Because as anyone who's worked in this way in a marketing environment will be already well aware, it's once you start to do the iteration that you achieve far superior performance. We ran a trial about 18 months ago back in the UK on lead acquisition for the top of the donor pipeline. And we found that we could very quickly prototype something which achieved performance equivalence. Didn't look as good. It was like really lightweight compared to what we had, but it performed just as well. But actually, when we moved to iterate that, we actually performed 3 times as well as that through the iteration and improvement process. So the quicker we can get to that, the better. And that's why Agile and Lean are right at the heart of the approaches that we're taking. But that's all been a bit theoretical. So thanks for bearing with me on that. I'm aware we're doing some sort of real detailed dives on this webinar. So thanks for sticking with it this far. Let's jump to a bit of a practical example, because as I mentioned a couple of times and Helmut's mentioned, the Leapfrog part of the platform, the portal, if you like, is currently going through the process of refinement to figure out exactly what we're delivering next quarter. So I'm going to hand over to Helmut to take us on a bit of a more detailed look at where we're at with Leapfrog. Over to you, Helmut.
Cool, thanks, Martin. And this will really fit in well with the bit of theoretical overview that you just gave us. So I'm going to dive right into the MVP bit again. So we're actually delivering this platform as part of different components, and each of those components is launched with what we call an MVP. The first one that we built was about content, the second one about transactions, the third about notifications. Now we're kind of partway through the login MVP, and then personalized content will be the last one, which means when a supporter logs in and sees, let's say, the authenticated users part of the website, they will actually see different content from somebody who's not logged in. And of course, a very big part of Leapfrog is just that, right? Delivering personalized content to a sponsor. So, and I guess the order of those components is kind of straightforward, because you, for example, you need a login in order to, or you need people to be able to authenticate in order to give them personalized content. Again, it doesn't mean that when we have built a component from scratch, we will stop working on it, but we will continue to work on all of those and optimize them. But still, it means that for the more components we actually need to work on, the more we will spread our capacity across different things we work on. So that's maybe a bit of context around, for example, why while we're working on login and personalized content, we don't move with the same perceived speed on content and transactions that we did maybe half a year ago when we were only working on content and transactions, which is why it's also important to not just build stuff in content and transactions, but to build stuff based on data when we go live in offices. So that's just a bit of an overview of where we're at right now and where we're getting with personalized content. So we're, even though the now line here says that we haven't started implementing personalized content yet, we're already in the conceptual phase of figuring out what will it look like, what will we start with, and so on. So now regarding Leapfrog specifically, Most of the touch points will be built as part of the personalized content component. And we're working very closely together with Tia, Jay, and others across TMC and World Vision IT to make sure that we follow all the best practices and that they have gathered since they started working on Leapfrog 2 years ago. We also agreed on a set of high-level principles that are rooted in Agile and Lean that Martin just talked about to inform our day-to-day decision-making. So the first of those is a data-driven rollout and implementation. So this means we will implement first the touch points for which we already know that they have a positive impact on retention. So this is true, for example, for watching a video of your sponsored child or being able to write a letter to them. Tia's team has already collected data from the biggest offices, which shows that those touch points have a positive impact on retention. So this means we can implement them with quite a great confidence that we will actually deliver value early on. Second, we will make sure that our baseline is as small as possible so that officers who want to launch this component early on can benefit from the biggest value items from the start. After that, we will deliver frequent smaller iterations that are self-contained. So if for some reason your office doesn't feel comfortable going live with the baseline, you can review at each iteration and just join whenever you feel comfortable. Third, we're remodeling the data flow and data storage compared to previous solutions that we had in the partnership so far. We respect Horizon RMT as a single source of truth for field data and CRMs as a single source of truth for sponsor data. That's also something Martin talked about at the very beginning of this webinar. So what we will do in United 4 is only reference or at worst mirror the data that exists in other systems. For Horizon RMT, we have already built a real-time integration that we also use in our content component, for example, to show children that can be sponsored. So we're just going to expand that for Leapfrog as well. And lastly, we're building out this component with global content flows. So this means where automated content comes from Horizon or RMT, you will automatically get it in your local language. Where content needs to be produced manually, we will provide a global version of that piece of content that goes through our normal content flow, which includes automated translation as well. For example, when we have manually produced videos, which I know are a concern for some of you, for example, we can see a video of a child that has previously been sponsored that are just manually created. Those will be created on a global basis. It might be an English video with subtitles in your local language, again, through Google Translate API. So that's how we're trying to figure out how can we deliver that as a turnkey solution for you guys if you don't have the capacity to bring this high level or high volume of personalized content to your website. Now, based on those principles, we already worked together with Tia's team to get an initial prioritization together for the Leapfrog touchpoints. At this point, a big thanks to Tia for working alongside us in this process, being a great partner and doing lots of this work with existing data across the partnership as well. So we now came up with 5 initial priority levels, which you might see as critical, high, middle, low, and maybe for the future. Right? So priorities 1 and 2 have the strongest backup for data. And for priority 1, we also know that the impact on retention is high. And you can see priority 1 actually only features 8 touch points. So when we're thinking about launching this, we can launch really early on and already get most of the highest priority items where we know that this actually really helps us with data. So just to reiterate, those priorities are based on the expected value to sponsors, leading to reduced churn or reduced cancellation rate. So this means we're making sure that we measure the success of our baseline and any of the optimizations based on observable change in supporter behavior that we have defined beforehand. So now, based on the current situation in your office, this approach might mean different things to you and to your launch plans. If your office doesn't offer a login area with personalized content at all yet, you will be able to launch the baseline and already get the high value touch points very early on. If your office has a version of My World Vision already, you might look at the value sponsors get from it and the impact it has on retention. So you may want to look at launching a little bit later, but because we're implementing all the high value touch points fast, you will soon get better performance than with the existing experience. However, as Martin mentioned early on, if you're looking to recreate all the features that your portal is currently offering, it might take a long time until you get all of those out of United 4. Actually, we might never get there because we're sticking to measurable change in supporter behavior as a prerequisite for rolling out an optimization. So, of course, if you have data which shows that a particular touch point that you already have in your existing experience provides value to your sponsors, which leads to change in their behavior, feel free to share that in product board anytime. Feel free to share that with Tia as well. And we're happy to reevaluate the priority. So it doesn't mean that it's all set in stone now. But still, it means that if you're looking at performance parity, you will be able to launch much faster than if you're looking at feature priority to this. So this is just a bit of the roadmap that we're working on here. And as always in Agile, this is dynamic. So just because something's in priority 4 now, it's possible that somebody makes a test in the US or in Canada that brings one of the priority 4 touch points to the forefront, because we see that it actually makes a big difference. So as always, this is very dynamic. So lastly, I want to share a couple of major considerations with you that will surely be at the forefront of our thinking while we roll this out. So the first one is that Leapfrog relies heavily on automation. So this means you will have to have a strong databases and a robust governance around data in place. RMT and Horizon has done a great job making the data reliable and accessible in the last year or two. So I want to give a big shout out to Christopher Rajan and his team for all the advancements that have happened on the side in API development and so on. What you can do on your side from an office perspective in order to get ready for the, let's call it, age of automation, is to make sure that you have a strong and reliable data structure in your CRMs as well. This will benefit your office anyway, and you will probably have to do it anyway when you move to the next CRM. But it's not a quick thing to do, so the sooner you start, the better. So concrete examples for this would be to make sure that the fields you use in your CRM are used in the appropriate way, to increase the percentage of contacts which have an email address, to remove email addresses which are used by multiple contacts, and so on. So this is something that will definitely impact how well you can benefit from all these automated features that we will deliver. The second consideration is to realize that you will always have to make a trade-off between a turnkey solution and localization. So the big advantage we have for Leapfrog here is that TIA worked very hard to provide us with a global set of standardized touch points. And we now want to deliver this experience to you in a way that does not bind additional resources at your office. So we will really looking forward to delivering this as a turnkey solution. What we need to realize, though, is that with any localization, we will have to pay a price, not only in the added complexity in our platform, but also in a lack of automation that results in more manual work at your office. So this kind of project where everyone happily agrees on a high level that, yeah, let's build Leapfrog, but the operational level, the devil really lies in the details. So please be aware as we're building this, that your operational staff will come back to you and say, oh, this is something that we had so far, and it's probably not part, or it's not delivered in the same way on the global platform. What should we do? So please be prepared to make an informed decision here and know that we probably won't have both a turnkey solution that's global and all the localizations that we have. And the last consideration is the difference between performance and features that Martin already talked about, so I won't get into more detail around this. So be sure or make sure that you make an informed decision of, do we want to get the same performance out of this, or do we want to recreate the features out of this? How we can help in this performance bit to make this a little bit more of an informed decision is that we can provide something like a proxy performance framework, and that you can use to compare your current solution to our global solution. So since retention is very hard to measure, I think it's probably helpful to give a little bit of guidance about what are some proxy KPIs here, like repeat visits, interaction with content, etc., so that we can measure this both on your legacy platform and on United 4. So that's something we'll be working on the next couple of weeks and make it available to you as soon as it's possible. So I hope this gives you a good overview of what we're planning in regards to Leapfrog and the principles we're working towards, and a rough overview of our planning cycles. And with that, I'll give it over to you, Martin.
Many thanks, Helmut. We've covered a lot and we are running right up to the end of our time. So I would encourage you, if you do have any questions about what you've seen already or other aspects of United, now is your last chance to put those in the chat, and we will get to those before we have to scoot off and free you in just a few minutes. While you take a moment to do that, if you want to, if you're watching this live, then I just want to share with you where we're up to in terms of the different cohorts of United, because you'll maybe remember that we are accepting new offices onto the platform in a number of cohorts that this year align with our calendar quarters. So the cohort 1 countries started to work on the platform last quarter and are now preparing to go live in the final stages of that preparation. So that's South Africa, Spain, and the United Kingdom. We've now, of course, moved into quarter 2. So we are now working with the second cohort, Thailand, Italy, Ireland, and the Netherlands, who are now going through their onboarding process, their training, they're starting to receive their workshops, and hopefully that's going well if you're on the call. I'm hearing some encouraging things, and I know we still have lots to do, but it's great to be working with you all. We are now pretty much full up on cohort 3, which is our Q3 intake, which is offices that will launch late Q3, early Q4. We have one open spot technically, but I know that's going to be filled very soon. So if you're thinking that you want to go live some point, or start to go live with United 4 at some point this financial year, your window is closing. We now have some spots available in Q4. Those will close up relatively quickly now. We have a number of offices that are talking to us about those slots, and I expect those to close over the next couple of months. Now, that's a really important turning point, because the offices that come on board in cohort 4 have the option to go live before we hit this autumn. And excuse me, for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere in particular, but even those in the South as well, I know that the period running through towards Christmas is going to be a really important time to improve your fundraising. If you want to go live in time for this Christmas's fundraising campaigns, you must join cohort 4 at the latest. So if that's in your thinking and you haven't yet spoken to Ria and the team, please do take the time to do that, so that we can come on to make sure that you've got a slot reserved for you. Now, I am not seeing any questions coming through in the chat, which either means that we've done a brilliant job and provided all the information, or it may also mean that we've totally confused people and they need to have a look at that material again before coming back to us. But it probably also means that you're aware that we're running out of time and you've got other meetings to go off to. So unless anything comes through, I'm not seeing anything on my board here. Let's wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Helmut, for helping me to cover all this material and for all your work. Thank you to all those that we've mentioned across different teams and in our SO teams who are preparing to go live. So much work going on around United at the moment. Do excuse me, sorry. My yes, there we go. My hay fever's kind of playing havoc with my throat today. Do tune in on the next webinar. We're scheduled to have the next webinar in a month's time. That's on Thursday, the 25th of March. We will be live again at 9 a.m. London time, so probably more doable for those of us in Europe and to the east than for those of us in the continental US and South America. So if you are not going to be able to join live and you would like us to cover certain material, either as a Q&A or as part of our in-depth coverage, please do let us know. In the meantime, I will wish you all a wonderful start to the spring. And hopefully things are starting to get sunny for you as they are for me here in sunny London. Very much look forward to joining you again in a month's time to explore what's going on in the world of United. Until then.